I will also never be supporter of Rams.
You have bounce? Thank you.
Rams
Welcome
left-
to episode 23-18 of Happy Chicks RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
Hey! I'm Kadave.
I am Chris.
And I'm Kurt.
I'm Kimmy.
You have to project the audience. We have a live studio audience, too. How's the con been for you so far? Never coming back again? No? It's terrible? No? Okay. All right. Now, we did something new this year. We started streaming games. Kimmy set this up, and what would you call it? Ramrodded it? Okay, ramrodded it. And
Team Ramrod!
yeah. And we ran 3 games, 1 yesterday and 2 today. Is that correct?
I was only in one. I can't speak to
Okay.
that.
That's probably right.
I think that's it. Yes, okay. And then we're running 2 more tomorrow, right? Okay. All right. And plus also there were the regular convention games that happened as well. People played in any of those? Yes? Woo! How many GMs are here from games that they ran yesterday or today? Okay.
Did you run game? If you run game, you raise hand.
Okay. All right. All right. So the way I'm going to do this, I'm going to start with the stream games, and we're going to talk about the games that got streamed. Any players that want to come up and make any comments on it, I'm going to be asking you questions mostly, rather than just detailing out the entire game and all the great details about your character. We're going to talk about what you liked about the game, what you think could have improved as the GM, and also ask the players for similar kinds of feedback. Okay?
Sweet.
Everyone take a drink.
Hop, 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 hop.
All right. Should I start with mine since it went on Friday? Yeah. Okay. I ran Chronicles of Darkness. Oh, we're going to interrupt quick.
And
Before
now
we do
for a
that-
message.
There's somebody very important coming into the room.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Eric M. Aldrich the First. Well, you said you had somewhere to be at 8:30.
The man, the myth, the legend.
You can't hear you yet. Come on over here. Tell us who you are and what it is that makes you famous.
My name is Eric M. Aldrich the First. I own a mansion and a yacht.
Excellent. So, what's going on with the con?
Well, as to be another broken record, we think this is the largest show we've ever run. We don't know for certain, but we're well over. We're about 2,300 right now, so we will probably hit 25, which will be the first time we've ever done that. Very good so far. Is everyone having fun? Yeah! Cool. So con's doing well. So far, no disasters. Excellent. And they're still parking a little bit. 4 cars. Wow. We can take up 4
4
cars.
spaces.
4 spaces. So on that,
5
that's all I
smart
got.
cars,
Thank
4
you.
parking
Yeah, thank
spaces.
Good to see you, man.
All right.
And before that, another Illuminate from the
Generalissimo.
from Strategic Con is here. Jim Sandoval, RPG coordinator dude.
Yeah, we just keep getting uglier, right? So, how's everybody doing? Everybody having a good time? I am having a great time as well. We had some unfortunate cancellations today. We had some kind of big names, some really familiar names that couldn't make it this con. Unfortunately, Mook, Jib, and Gina couldn't make it, and they had some stuff on the schedule. It always breaks my heart when I have GMs like that fall off the schedule, because that means that there are at least a score of people that aren't having as good a time as they possibly could have. But we hope them. We wish them well and a speedy recovery and a return to GameX in May. So looks like Games on Demand is taking off awesome. Every time I go down there, it's just a bunch of people having a great time.
Like a jumbo jet.
You were down there all day.
Yeah.
No.
Today.
No, just in the morning.
Yeah, but just in the morning.
The message is all
And
day.
into the early
All day.
afternoon.
I was right in this. I can't get any closer. Hi. I love you.
Yeah, let's not let's not make it weird.
Oh, it's been weirded.
But even with that, we still had a bunch of stuff going on, and it's been pretty great. We have one of the one of the designers for Pathfinder here as a special guest. And I had a really long conversation with her
Awesome.
about second edition coming out, and it sounds really, really, really cool, actually. We had some guys from Full Metal RPG, which is another podcast, gaming podcast, and they're looking forward to checking out your game designy get-together thing and hanging out with you guys over there. I spoke volumes about Tome's greatness because they were talking about indie games and small press games and stuff like that. So that's also fun. We have another great couple of days still coming up, so the fun is still going to keep on rolling. Are there any questions or any comments that I could take from the floor? Anybody have anything for me? I love you too. Like really, like for realsies and sincere. I love you so much.
So, the only comment that I would like to make is to thank you again for all the crazy work that you put in to make us have this.
Here.
So we can all have fun.
Which
and it's awesome.
brings me to an exciting announcement that I'd like to make. Joining the Strategicon staff will be Tomer, and because Games on Demand will become its own department under him, and he will become a department head among us. So welcome aboard and thank you. And of course, if anybody knows who Carla Freeman is, she is the director of my volunteer group. And she also does a bunch of stuff with Cool Mini or Not and Steve Jackson Games, and basically has these gaggles of volunteers that help us out here. And so my idea was to promote her to be head of non-GM volunteers or coordinator and organizer for that. So we're going to see probably a market improvement in the amount of training and information that these volunteers have, because we're going to actually have a program to give them that information. As well as having a group of people that are not only permanently assigned to certain areas, but a core group that are capable of filling in from area to area. So we'll have competent support for you guys once you have questions regarding games and where to go and things like that. So another great promotion. So she'll be a department to herself as well. So some really positive changes and some and our mantra is still incremental improvements every single con. Something gets a little bit better. So we're hoping that you guys feel that effect. So, and that's pretty much all I got to say.
Thank you very much, sir. Huh?
Make sure everyone's talking really loud into the mic because it's so quiet. I turned the thing.
Anyway, on Monday, 8 o'clock, I ran Chronicles. Oh, sorry, Friday. Chronicles of Darkness. The game was, I think in the book, was called Mortals on the Mode of Sin, and I think I called it, I later started calling it A Holiday on Caravel Island. And if any of you have ever listened to the Mode of Sin AP, that was the Vampire Masquerade game I ran, a campaign of. Right. It's basically this island that kind of replaces Catalina. It's bigger, it's got 2 big cities on it, and that was sort of the central place for that game, and I thought it would be fun to run a con game where the players are people from the mainland who are coming to the island for a vacation for a weekend. And I was seeing it kind of more as like a horror game than like a regular vampire game. As far as, I did some really good prep, some fantastic prep. I had like 2 or 3 scenes that I thought were just going to be amazing, and the players never got to them.
Do you want me to interview you?
No, well, no, you don't have to. You can.
Hello. I'll share. So, Stuart, as you were GMing this game, what did you expect from the players?
I thought they would go and look for clues, find them, and then go where those clues led.
So have you run games for players before?
I see now your first mistake. So, Stu, what in your actual prep did you think they were going to pick up on as a clue that we passed by completely?
There was a Proton Mail account that I mentioned to one of the players on a computer that he didn't try to hack. And if he had, he would have gotten the list of names of people. And that would have led to more clues at 2 different places.
Got that. All right. I'm not sure. And can you tell us what the roles or occupations of these PCs were?
These are ordinary people. I wanted to run a horror game. These are people just going on vacation. They're just normal, except for the prepper. The prepper showed up armed to the teeth.
What would you do differently?
I would probably make one of the things I did with this is I made the character generation. I only did partial character generation, so I made the stats and the skills for the characters. I did not do anything that had to do with personality. Didn't have anything to do with breaking points or character connections or anything like that. We did all that at the table. That ended up creating characters who were probably a little more mundane than I was envisioning. Mm-hmm. So I would probably either give more cues so that the characters would end up being more like what I was envisioning, at least in tone. So yeah, I think that was the biggest.
Yeah, I think that's a good takeaway from it. Yes. Did you still have fun with it?
Yes, it was fun. It was fun. The one thing I did not anticipate was calling the cops, which, in hindsight, makes perfect sense. You're a bunch of normal people on vacation. You go to this person's house that you know. You're going to go meet her, and she doesn't meet you where she's supposed to. So you go to her address, and you find groceries strewn in the backyard, and her house is locked up, and her dog has to pee really bad, and obviously she's been gone for a while, and you don't know where she is. She's not answering the phone. So it actually made perfect sense that you would have called the cops. And I was racking my brain trying to think, now, were there any cops in the Mode of Sin game who were ghouled or anything like that I could introduce? And I could not think of any. The only thing you guys ever did with cops is kill them, render their skulls, and turn them into purses.
To be fair, that was Samantha, not me.
Yeah, but that was the one thing that really kind of stumped me, is I was trying to figure a way if there was an existing NPC cop from that game that I could have brought in that was someone's ghoul, and that was kind of stumping me.
Right.
But other than that, no.
Well, and you had this game that you were pulling from that was like 3 years long. So there was a lot of stuff to try and remember and try and keep in continuity.
30+ sessions.
Yeah, we played that game a really long time because some of those sessions were like 6 months apart.
Right.
So, right, I'm done with questions. Okay.
Yeah. So, are there anyone who played in it who would like to make any comments or any questions or suggestions or anything about the mode? Want to talk? Come on up.
Anyone but Rob? Anyone?
You can. You have. Yeah.
No, okay. Get the fuck up there.
Tell us who you are and what do you do that makes you famous.
James Velez, known as James V 1971 on the chat, and I don't know. I run a lot of AL games. Excellent.
And you came here from far away.
I came from Dallas, Texas. Yes.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Well, welcome.
I did.
First trip out here?
No, I've come out to LA for business and other things. Not too often, but.
Okay. So your quick impressions. What you liked about it, what you think could have improved?
I liked the fact we had some character generation because I could put my own little spin on it. The players, we did get into a mode with each other that worked really good. I felt it clicked, and we got a lot of good personality back and forth, and just having fun with it. It was a blast. We had a lot of fun.
Okay. Improvements?
I do think a little more flavor for where you were intending the characters to go. Other than that, no, I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you. Any other comments?
Yeah, calling the cops didn't give me a lot of time to hack the other account.
Right.
I will admit to that one. I own that one. But yeah, we did drive completely right past the second clue. So, we waved at it as we went past. So, but yeah, otherwise it was fun.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Rob? Yeah. Oh, more? Okay.
Yeah.
Robert.
Hi. How's it going? My name's Rob.
Impressions of the game. What do you liked? What do you think could improve?
Well, actually, no. So anything I say is going to be repeated. So I just want to cut to the chase. Is that on the podcast you've always talked about the 3-clue methodology as found in Gumshoe? You didn't. Why not?
That's actually not from Gumshoe. That's from the Alexandrian.net. But go ahead.
No. But so obviously those clues were important for you, and you had an idea of where you wanted it to go, and obviously we were not pursuing that. Why did you not constantly try to reintroduce some of those? You're talking to the microphone.
The thing. I was looking at the game on two different levels. On one level, it is simply an escape horror game. It is you guys are on this island. It's infected with something. There's something bad going on. You don't know it's vampires necessarily, and the goal of it was just to get out, get away.
Yeah.
I had a few clues that were going to sort of take you into that vampire world a little bit. That never happened, but I don't think it necessarily had to.
I don't know. I'm hearing you screwed up. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm just hearing him, like, he talks a lot about, like, one thing, but, like, he obviously made a conscious decision not to do it.
I think you're victim blaming.
And I don't.
I think he was the victim of the players.
Oh.
And you are victim blaming.
We victimized the shit out of him. Yeah. Yeah, and each other. Go back and watch that stream because Stu is squirming.
No, but those specific things, like one of the places that you guys might have gone to was Carolyn Osterman's house, which you passed by
And waved.
and it had been demolished.
That's why we waved.
Right, but there was an intact basement, and there was stuff in that intact basement that would have made for a less TPK-ish game.
We only lost one person.
That was me that made you only lose one person.
Well, that's good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Huh?
No. Well,
Face your mouth hole that way.
I actually don't care about you guys because there's more people listening online.
Yeah, it's media impressions, folks.
Thank you, Abria. Thank you.
You got something on your face.
I have.
Cheat out.
So what I'm curious is that you obviously wanted us to go explore this demolished, dilapidated house where an explosion took place. You've already mentioned that you didn't really set up the characters to do anything like that. Specifically, because as James mentioned, we enjoyed creating those relationships and stuff like that. How would you let that amount of fun happen, but also give the characters an impetus to actually be more than just average, everyday people who are going to follow the norms of society?
I think I may have added vices like curious, things like that, to sort of impulsive things that would have made the characters do those things that a normal person wouldn't do in that kind of a situation. That's what that I think more than anything. Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, you have to come up here. We can't hear your question. Or you can repeat the question like a professional.
I can do that.
All right, here he'll just repeat your question.
Okay, now you made it.
I'm here now. Did you give them occupations? Because were any of them like a police officer or a hacker or some stuff that would make them the kind that would go?
I gave them 5 archetypes. There was ex-jock, crackpot, prepper, scientist, and marketer. Those were the 5 I had. And they had skills. Basically, they had stats and skills to kind of support those archetypes.
Stu, I'm a career marketer. There are no skills.
I think
I was going with this sort of my idealized vision of a marketer, which I'm sorry is not you.
Well, then carry on.
I was thinking about this game a lot, actually, and I think one of the things that might work differently is if you had if you had gamers who weren't in as many games as some of us are, because I think it was super exciting for me to come in and play a normal person. I'm so used to playing a superhero or all these things where I can do all this amazing shit. Being this sort of washed up wrestler was oh God, I'm at a hotel on Catalina and my friend is gone, I'm drinking. So, leaning into that normal personness was super fun, but also really not what you wanted to have happen or plan. So I think other people could have been given that same game and not leaned in as hard as I did.
Possibly. The other thing is I fell into the same trap because I'm used to prepping games for characters who are adventurers, right?
Yeah.
And these are not necessarily going to be adventurers. And if I had spent 5 or 10 minutes of prep thinking, what am I going to do if someone calls cops? Obviously, the cops are going to be Gould or something. I mean, there's going to be something going on there. But in my head, I'm trying to figure out exactly what I'm going to make that be. And at one point, I actually tried to kind of get you guys. I had a plainclothes detective come and visit you when you were at the hotel bar, And
we turned over evidence, like good witnesses in a case. Here's my phone. This is where the message was. You can have it.
right.
I'm gonna sit here and have another. Yeah, you did. You should call it in first. I think you're right about the vices and stuff, though,
Yeah.
because like you let us fill in the vices and virtues, which is really cool. You got that customization piece, but I ended up filling out my vice as selfishness, which means it's like, oh no, that's dangerous. I'm not doing that at all. So I think if you had filled out the vices or just the vices, maybe let us fill out the virtues, it would have still given us some customization, but you could have given us vices that would play into us doing dangerous things.
Yeah, I think so. All right.
I know how it is to play a regular person in one of Stu's games. When I made a truck driver, and 45 minutes later he was shot in the face.
And dead.
And just dead. I mean, because he was a regular person. If you get shot in the face, there's a real high chance you're not coming back.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Would a tone conversation at the top of the game have solved this problem? If you had said to them, I know that you're regular people, but if weird shit starts to happen, you're kind of on your own, like, try to figure out the mystery and just leave it at that and then see how they go with it.
Possibly. I mean, that may have. I mean, I don't. Did I say anything in the description about it being? I don't remember what I said in the description. There may have been that, but I don't think there was a pregame conversation about it. Also, as the players made the characters, there started to be a lot of interaction between them, and I didn't want to really step on that. So I just kind of tried to roll with what they were doing rather than say, no, you are serious people. This is a scary game. So,
Ooh, scary game.
all right. Any comments, questions? We're good. All right. Second game, which would be Saturday at 8, 9 o'clock. Who ran?
Were there any other Friday games first?
Oh no, we're gonna stream games first.
Just stream games.
Yes.
Oh,
Then we're gonna go back to the other ones.
My bad.
That's Tom's.
Merkerger.
Who are you?
No, let me see. No, because then the audience can't hear him because he points back towards you. Get over here. Come here. Get close. All right. So, okay. First off, what the fuck is Merkerger?
All right, so there are two guys in Malaysia, Moon Cow, ZXU. They're writing a Southeast Asian-inspired fantasy setting called 1,000,000 Islands, and Merkerger is the first of those that they talk about. A land of crocodiles, ruled by crocodiles. There's people there, but the crocodiles are like the nobles, and they've got magic and shit and whatever. That's kind of the basic premise. They're kind of from like OSR and D&D-ish. Oh, there's some of my cards from the game that I forgot. We can put them in front of the screen if we wanted to. Anyways, the idea is the art's fantastic. It's like poetry reading this book. It is fantastic. It's funny. But it's just a setting. Like, they don't give you a way to play it. They kind of assume maybe you'll use D&D or something because that's what they're used to playing. But I don't think that really hits it the way I would want to hit it. The way the graphics and the illustrations and everything just reminds me of a game called Fall of Magic. And so I kind of like hacked it to do Fall of Magic-y stuff. And that's it. So Fall of Magic is GM-less, though. This is a little more facilitated. I'm going to let you explore this place, but I'm also going to give you quite a bit of freedom as far as who you are exploring this place. But I'll introduce you to the people and places and the weird things that are there, and that's kind of the basic idea. Okay. I've run it a couple times before online and, at cons and different stuff, but this might have been the first time I've run it here at Strategicon.
Nope.
No? Oh, no, it's the
Bears of
second time.
Candice.
And the last time I did it was with Kadave, and we had Bob Quintero, Lokio, who came out for that one. And we had the two Bears of Candice, which were just absolutely fantastic. Oh, my God. So, yeah, this is my second time running it. My bad. So that's it. Any
What did you like about the session, and what do you think could improve?
The players were really into it. They were fantastic. It felt kind of like when we played with Kadave the last time. Like, everyone just kind of brought really fantastically interesting and involved characters. In this case, we had a little bit of I mentioned that game because we had two people come with the same character, and it was great, right?
Yeah.
But this one, we were like, oh, do we want to talk about it a little bit so we don't kind of like stomp on each other as far as the type of games, this type of characters. And so we had like different stuff.
But I think one of my favorite things that I did in both games is I did that little wishes thing toward the end where it was like, ooh, we have like an hour left or something, right? What is it we want to see in this story? And I did that with you guys, and everybody kind of was like, the different things they wanted to see. And
I
we
want
did
more
that-
pain, Tomes. I want more pain.
more pain, more sadness, and we did that thing, and I think it really helped make sure we were kind of hitting that really beautiful goal at the end, where everybody, including myself, just felt like, yeah, we told a story that we wanted to see and we wanted to tell, and where we wanted it to end, even if it wasn't necessarily like the happy ending. Like,
No.
we can talk about that. But anyways, so yeah. As far as what to improve, I don't know. I mean, I think I've run it enough times now where I'm always really nervous because it's very like off the cuff with everybody. Like I give a lot of narrative authority to the players, so you guys have a lot of responsibility in that, and then I've got my responsibilities. So I'm kind of always nervous about that part. But I just, that's the way I see it running every time, and it just has worked so far. But I've kind of been blessed with like great players. So.
Excellent. Okay. Any players want to make comments on Merkiger?
Yeah, we got to talk about this, Jason. Yeah. Who else was in here? Oh, Joey? Yeah.
Well, get some. Just go line up.
One or both of you, don't matter.
Simultaneous.
I'll move out of the way. I'll let Joey take the mic because he knows he uses mics. Okay, so focusing on what did you like about it, system-wise. What did you like about it, setting-wise? The scenario, how that transpired, and something that if there's anything that you would like to see to improve it or anything like that.
I think the setting is absolutely fantastic, and I really enjoyed the theme of it and the story that sort of unfolded. I also think we have to give a lot of credit to Tomes for how this was actually physically possible.
Yeah, he's a story shepherd.
Yes, and so I think this isn't really a criticism, but I would call Merkiger a gamer's game. Maybe not somebody's first game, but I could be wrong about that. I just had a really great time today.
You are wrong, by the way. Okay. Oh, all right.
Tom says that Jason's wrong.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Tomes is God. Tomes is.
Tom says no.
Tom says no.
I think one of my favorite things about the game is the way you build your character and the way that your character evolves just mechanically. Because you start off with very basic ideas of who your character is, and you go through the first couple of scenes and you gather positive and negative attributes, and really they kind of come out of what happened in the scene. And you have kind of ideas, they give you examples, you can really kind of pick from your own, and it's really interesting to see your character evolve from where you initially thought they were going to be versus where they are 3 scenes in. Like I had in my head this idea of playing this fallen princess, and I ended up basically being Moana. It was awesome. It was great. Not where I expected to go, but it was a lot of fun.
I don't know if this was the table or the system, but one thing I learned about it was that the emergent play created very rich, textured characters. I don't typically play somber characters, and when we played the somber character, I was like, I feel like I'm really downplaying this session, like the energy level is low, because I happen to be very theatrical. But when we got to see the glimpse of my character when she was young and not diseased and cursed, suddenly I felt really empowered, and I don't know what that is. I think is the tone that the system demands, the way that you constructed it, because there is no system. I mean, let's be frank. And you talk humbly about how, oh, well, I applied this framework here because it worked in this other game. No, you sort of created a system that propelled this vision. And I think that framework, the way that you present it anyway, forces players to take it seriously and slow. It's interesting.
I agree. I think part of the thing is the setting is so, the stakes are already so high just in the setting alone. Like you have to go through this area that is so dangerous and people may not return, and you kind of set it really, really high to begin with. I can't really imagine a lighthearted romp through Merkiger.
Not with blood sacrifice happening in 30 minutes of the game.
Okay, but to be fair, that was your idea.
But I didn't execute. It was just an idea.
All right, fine.
The same way when I played last con, we ended up with two guys that made the same character. One of them decided that he'd made a vow of silence. So it wouldn't have really been a good streamed game. But but his brother did all the talking for both of them, and his brother would not shut up, and it was amazing. He was just, "We are the Bears of Candice!" Ah! Like he was like a hyped up pro
I was just saying,
wrestler.
pass the tacos, man.
For sure, 100%. And then I started out thinking I was going to be sort of a religious leader, and then I ended up being like a shepherd of magical mana monkeys. Like, I was summoning like blue glowing howler monkeys out of the sky to help us, and that was not at all what I thought I was going into. And then that's where we ended up, and I was like, every single person here had a whole journey. And I think that's what I had the most fun with, was
emergent character development with texture and depth. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to do.
As a counterpoint to whether that would be a good stream game, my understanding is that Stork plays a silent character and is not a quiet person on stream. So.
He's just really fast with the sign language, man.
Yes.
And I talk to myself a lot.
Stork is a talk. All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Any comments?
Shade.
Kimmy is using a shade.
All right. What was our Saturday afternoon game?
That was me. I
right.
did that. So,
And who are you, and what do you do that makes you famous?
hi, I'm Kurt. I'm
round card.
I'm a co-host on a podcast called Pixel Scandal. Woo! And I wrote the game that I ran today.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is actually the fourth time that I've run it. I ran it once this morning and once today, this afternoon. It is a game called Lighthearted, which originally started as a setting for Savage Worlds, and then I realized that I wasn't using nearly anything from Savage Worlds, particularly. I don't know any of it. I like there was nothing. It was just I needed to roll some dice when we wanted to know what happened. So I ended up writing this game, which is the setting is 1980s nostalgia plus magic, and they're college kids who are a geek, a jock, a prep, what's the other one? A rebel. And they're trying to like go through life and you know find out who they are after high school, and yeah, so we sort of I dropped them into a bar where they we actually this time I've run it several times. The previous time they just woke up and had no idea what happened last night. This time we did some vignettes of the what happened in the night in the bar, and then I said, and a beautiful blonde walks in, and you wake up the next morning. And then we kicked off from there. So we actually had some common ground about maybe what happened before that point last night. And then they discover they've all got some bite marks on their neck. Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was really interesting.
So as far as what went well, what could have gone better, what
So I really loved the players that I got for the streamed game. Everyone kind of had the same tone in mind, which is a real tough thing with this game because it's real rules light. So if there's disparate goals among the players, like for instance, you had a mystery and a bunch of players who didn't care. If I don't have a mystery, and if they're trying to find it, it's not there. So I'm more interested in them bullshitting with each other in the bar, and then maybe we kill some vampires. So if people are interested in like, oh, I want to solve the mystery, there's not a lot there for them to find, which can be troublesome. But this one actually went really well. They all kind of had the same goals. They all really got super into. We had a makeover montage to get ready for the fancy party, which is like where this game sings in the makeover montage. And so yeah, that went really well. Some things that I think didn't go off as well as they could have. I bill it as kids overcoming the stereotypes that they gained in high school, and there's not enough mechanism there. So there's a couple ways that you could deal with that. You could like build it into the system more so that you're rewarded for overcoming your stereotypes. Rather, right now you're sort of rewarded for embodying them because I kind of want it. I want society to be pressing on you, right? To keep being the thing we think you should be, and then it's sort of on the player to overcome it, but they're not being rewarded for it. And so the only other way to encourage it is to make it painful to get the reward. So to give them a hard choice, like you can go hang out with the popular girl who's shunned you since high school, or you can help your friend who just fell down on the dance floor, right? And if you go with the popular girl, well, you're going to get that Benny, right? You're going to get that heart point. But if you help your friend, well, now you've grown as a character, right? And so like it's a little harder it's harder on the GM to engineer those moments, and so it might be something where I want to sort of mechanize that a little better.
Interesting. Okay.
I have one of my players here.
Okay. Who?
I don't know this guy's name, but I called him Awesome Hair Dude all day.
He is. That's his actual legal first name.
Awesome
hair
hairdo.
dude.
All one word.
Yeah. Hey, I am Awesome Hairdo. Yes. What makes me famous is my awesome hairdo. Yeah, what? What? I don't give a fuck about you. Yeah. That's true. That's true.
He learned it from watching you, Rob.
Right.
They grow up so fast.
Lighthearted was amazing. It was fantastic as a fun storytelling game. The 80s nostalgia angle with the magic was a lot of fun. We talked a lot about afterwards about just things that might be able to help improve and perhaps mechanize that system, or at least make it more clear, I guess, because you did say up front, hey, it's about overcoming stereotypes, and then all of us just embrace those stereotypes and just ram with them. So I don't know if that needs to be changed, but it was definitely something that that we all thought about and talked about afterwards. In fact, long enough that your wife came in and like dragged you out of the room because we wouldn't let you go.
Yeah, she actually did come in and say, "Look, I need him," and drag me out of the room.
So we were all thinking about it, and we all had a great time with it. I would absolutely play it again, and if you want to run it more, I would highly recommend to anybody or to look it up if you're ever gonna share it with people. So
yeah, pixelscandal.com.
Plug.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Awesome hair guy.
Hey-o.
All right. Okay, that was the last of the streamed games, correct? We had 3 streamed games, and we did all 3 of them. So now we're on Friday night games that were not streamed.
Hold
Anyone
on.
here who ran? Yes.
Thursday night game.
Oh,
The con starts at noon on Friday. Next.
Aww.
Okay, go ahead.
Then why is there a discount on the hotel room for Thursday night?
I don't know. Oh, it's some sort of shadow con you're doing up there?
No.
You're doing something off the books, man?
No. There's
Okay,
just
well, go
no
ahead.
book.
Jim is
There's
sitting
no
right
book
there,
yet.
dude.
Look, if
Go
there's
ahead.
a sign-up sheet for Thursday night, I'd sign up for stuff, but there's not, so I find my fun.
30 seconds into your time. Go.
I would like to cede the remainder of my time to the gentleman from Fresno.
The gentleman from Fresno has the floor.
Thank you, Kadave. I appreciate that. I facilitated Forest Mother, which is my. It is a story game about.
What is it again? What's it called?
Forest Mother. Okay. It is a story game.
Yes. Forest Mother.
With the most metal of wolves. It is a story game about forest spirits and the guardians they raise to protect the forest from dangers. So I think I've run it at this con before, games on demand sort of situation. But we were all here Thursday night. I had 5, 6 people, and we all sat down and played it. It was super good. I actually, this was a fresh version of the game. So the game sort of plays out in a series of rounds where you create the forest on these index cards. Each person creates a location. You create your forest mother, who is sort of a forest spirit that is charged with protecting the forest. But they can't really act on it themselves very well. So they raise these guardians, which are like their children. And you end up with the weirdest fucking mix, right? One might be a ghost, one might be a mushroom riding a flesh mech, and another one is like a badger. So, yeah, teacup pig, a teacup pig named Chop, who is gonna get swole. But yeah, so it's a cute little game. It's a very I write light games that don't have a lot of they're just fun.
Can I subscribe to your newsletter?
Oh fuck, I need a newsletter.
Or just have a podcast.
Pixelscandal.com.
Yeah.
I got to play in this game, and it makes my heart swell that Kurt's writing these really cool
Hashtag
little
get thick.
story
Get
games.
thick!
The game got thick, let me say. But yeah, no, it was a beautiful little game, and I thoroughly recommend that anybody who has a chance try it out. I really like some of the, like when you talked about how it looked before and what you've done with it now as far as mechanics. Like, it didn't look like just some story game somebody's kind of like made up and hasn't done before. Like, it looked like the kind of story games I expect to see out there in the world that I have seen. Yeah, it was super enjoyable. So anyways.
Thank you so much, Tomes.
Awesome.
High praise from Tomer.
The Lord of Story Games.
The Lord, yes.
Has smiled upon
He has
your
come out with the
creation.
pith helmet and given me his blessing.
Hi, Kurt. Hi, Kurt.
Yes, Adam.
Long-time caller, never-time listener, Adam.
Yep, pixelscandal.com.
Yeah.
Last time, sorry.
If you don't run this game for me before I leave this con, I will fucking flip a table. Just
Okay,
FYI.
so
why has this happened not for me?
Get here on
I
Thursday.
have to say how fucking flattered I am that I have had so many people ask me to run games for them that I wrote myself and brought that I don't know if there's enough time left before I have to leave to run them all. I am so fucking humbled.
That doesn't answer.
But yes,
that doesn't answer Adam's
we'll
question.
figure it out.
Kurt, I don't know if you're into my world, but I am more important than everybody else.
Oh, I'm aware. I am aware.
I will ruin your marriage to play this game.
Now, can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
Publish the game so that other people can run it too.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, but that's like hard. There's so much stuff you got to do before it's done.
No, you just give it to somebody else to do.
Oh, maybe I'll just sell it. Anybody want to buy a game?
I will give you $1 American.
Anybody got $2 American? Oh, I got $3. $3. Hey.
It's on now.
Do I hear it four? Do I hear it four? Whoa! Do I hear 1 million one? 1 million one? 1 million
Far
one?
off the
Nope.
rails.
Sold.
All right, so I am Katie Potts, Mrs. Kurt, Gidget on Pixel Scandal, and having to play all of the different iterations of Forest Mother. This is the most complete it's ever felt. The rules actually do what they're supposed to do, and it
No small task.
No, I know. And no, it did. I had to come up and agree with Tomes that we've played it several times, and this time it felt like it's ready.
Well, thank
Push the
you.
baby out of the nest and stop talking about it.
Been in that oven.
I had a feeling that was coming.
The crowd is chanting, "Push that baby."
For those that can't tell, my baby is in the audience tonight.
I give in to peer pressure easily. I'm sorry.
All right, Friday games. Who ran a Friday game?
I ran one.
2 people. Okay,
Do
3
we
people.
just
Okay,
want to do like
start with
one
Kurt.
for one for the queen situation? Okay.
2 o'clock for the Queen.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
no,
should talk about that.
Do you want to
Or
do for the
no,
queen now?
Yeah, do the
I'll
for the
let you
queen
go.
thing.
That was at 2 o'clock.
So there's a game I've started playing about a year ago.
Started obsessing over.
Yeah, that's putting it lightly. So there's a game called For the Queen.
Shilling
It's by
fucking hard.
Alex Roberts. She's the same one who wrote Starcrossed, which is the 2-player love Jenga Dread game.
Alex is awesome.
She wrote that game, and since that time, they've taken a little bit of time to get out there, but Evil Hat Productions is going to be producing it, and it should be available by June, in theory. Like, we could buy it, not Kickstarter, just buy it. It is my favorite role-playing game, story game, whatever you want to call it, of my lifetime. I have played more games of this than I ever have of Dungeons and Dragons. And I used to play D&D when I was a kid, but like I've played like 40 plus games of this thing, and I never get sick of it. It is so good, and I'm hyping it up. But everybody who's played it kind of at least understands what I'm talking about, if they don't agree. And so on Friday at 2, we did a special edition of Games on Demand where we just got a bunch of these decks from Evil Hat, and we basically just said, anybody who wants to come play, I'll get a couple facilitators that have played once or twice before, and they're going to run tables, and we'll just do this thing. And I wasn't really sure how many people would show up. I knew we would get like a dozen at least or something. And so we got 28 people showing up, which was fantastic. We had about like 5 or 6 tables running simultaneously. I kind of just got this idea from my friend Andy Carrison. She ran it at PAX Unplugged, like a learn and play story games, something they do for board games. She was like, we're going to do this for the Queen. And she had like 80 people show up or something insane. So we did it here. This is one of the only cons like in the country, in the world that can do this, because I happen to have like access to these things and I want to share them. And by the way, if you will be around between now and the end of the con, like if you go to Games on Demand in, I don't know, 2 hours or whatever, I still have these decks. You can still play this game. You don't even need me to play it. You just need the table and the cards and some friends, and you're set.
Briefly, what's the conceit of the game?
The Queen is on a perilous journey. She has chosen you and only you as her retinue because she knows that you love her. She is on a perilous journey to a distant land to broker an alliance. That's the game. Okay. All you have is a deck of cards, and they're just questions about your relationship with the Queen, mostly, as well as your relationship with each other, the land, blah, blah, blah. And that's it. And then you just answer a question at the end of the game about whether or not you defend the Queen. And so that's the game. It plays in 1 hour, 2 hours, depends on the table. But again, I'll let people talk about it because there's some people here who've played.
Okay. Anyone who played for the Queen want to talk about it? Start at the table and then we'll go around the room.
So,
and again, what'd you like? What could be better? What do you think about the system? Stuff like that.
I liked how effortless the system was, and again, emergent character creation. You don't have any concept who you are. You don't have a name. In fact, you'll play the game and not have a name. And by the end of it, I was a treasonous son of a bitch trying to dethrone her for my own nefarious reasons. That's not me, by the way. That's the cards.
Yes, it
demanded
is.
that. But no, it's really great.
If you're ever a monarch, don't trust this guy.
No. True. But you get just so much texture just because you have to answer questions. You have to answer hard questions. Why did she forget about you when you needed her? And wow, that answer defines your character.
Oh sure, yeah, I get that. Cool. All right.
Well, the first thing about it is like, I know Tomes gave it a glowing review just now, but he's not only just a good reviewer, he is the prophet of this game. Like, he is just out there showing it to the masses, anybody that can play, and it's super fun. It is the best party RPG that I can think of. Like, it's sort of its own category, for me, anyway. I think it is. I played twice during that Games on Demand slot yesterday, and the first round, I was sort of like the doctor from Dune, where I totally had nefarious plans for the Queen and was evil and wanted her to die because my family made a lot of money in the war, and we didn't want to stop that gravy train. The second game was the first time I've ever played it where the Queen was the nicest human being. Like, it was the best person anybody could be.
Now, is that determined by the cards that you get?
Yeah, as the cards flip, they each have a question and people answer them. And
it's determined by the answers that you give to the
Yeah.
cards. Yeah.
And so you get these questions, and we got all these positive questions, and everyone answered it like the Queen is the most beneficent of all of us, and she showered gifts upon me and my family, and one person got elevated to nobility just because, and all of these wonderful things. And then at the end of the game, like, we were heartbroken that the Queen was under attack. Like, everybody at the table was just wrecked by it the second time. Like, we're all going to fight for the Queen. I don't care if we have to die, because she needs to make it. But
Did she?
it's shocking to me how much you can get into a character where you start from nothing in an hour of playing that.
When we played it, we ended up with such a strong hold on our characters who did not have names that we did epilogues for our characters. And I think the real meat of this game, because I mean you're drawing the cards, it asks you a question like, when have you seen the queen be cruel? How did you feel about it, right? And you answer it. And then the whole table gets to ask you clarifying questions, which can be leading questions, which means no person at the table is ever not playing the game. A lot of story games like this, you get your turn and you're like, oh, well, I'll just write down my thing. And this dude over here, he could not care less because it's not going to be his turn for a little while. He has no way to input. They have no way to input any information into what's about to happen. It's just waiting for you to finish writing so that we can maybe move on to the next phase or whatever that is. But because of these clarifying questions, you're always active listening, waiting for the time that you can input or you can add or deepen this person's character by asking these drastic, like horrible questions. There was one question that came up. Who was it? Dan. There was something about his mother had died, and it was the queen's fault or something like that. And my clarifying question was, before your mom died, did she tell you I was your half sister? And so, like these kind of questions, like they make these characters so rich so quickly that I have never seen a game like this. It's like if every time you played a D&D game and like one of those emergent play things came up and your character got richer, every card is a full game of that emergent play.
Okay. Now, are these clarifying questions prompted on the cards, or do you have to come up with them yourself?
No, it's just the players, and sometimes there aren't any. Sometimes it's like everyone is satisfied with the answer and they don't have anything else to add. But I feel like the game is the clarifying questions, right? For me.
Okay.
The other thing that I forgot to mention that I absolutely love about the system is the use of an X card, and there's an X card on the table, and many of you have heard us talk about the X card, and you're aware of what it's about, but it's if something doesn't fit what you want to have in a game, you can tap the X card and it's out, and that's fair. In this game, you can X out a question. So if you get a question card and you just don't like it, you can just X it away.
Okay.
You can use it for tone purposes, which I love.
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea. That's a very good idea.
So it's not X because you're offended or it's a problem for you. It's X because you just don't think it fits with your picture of what's happening.
Or your character's decisions. The other thing, too, is if you use the X card, because the way the mechanics work is that the queen will be attacked. And that happens at some point in the deck. And you have put that attack card in the deck at a particular position, might be later on in the deck, depending on how long you want the game to be. But if you are Xing a lot of cards, that attack is coming.
Coming soon.
So I started using
so
that
every
as a
time
currency.
you X, you add a attack card?
No, every time you X, you just spend that question card.
But it means you don't have the time of answering the question and all that.
So I found myself conserving my X's. It was like, this is not something I want to answer, but I don't want to exit. So I'm going to answer it. and okay, all right, that's what made me the evil bastard.
Right. Okay. Anyone else have comments on it? Who are you and what do you do that makes you famous?
My name's Kurt, and nothing.
All right, go. What did you like about it? What could improve?
So this is the first time I played it, and the X card thing is great. Anytime you draw a card, you can choose to answer it. You can choose to pass it to the next person, or as Dave said, if you don't like where it's leading the game, you can exit. And I found myself at one point drawing a card, and I'm like, okay, no, I don't want that one. And I drew the next one. I was like, I don't want to X 2 cards in a row, you know? Right. I'm like, but I really don't. I don't like where this is taking the tone of the game. And so I exited a second time, and everybody at the table was like, no, you can do it. You can totally do it. I'm like, all right, fine. And I drew the third card, and I was like, this is perfect. Okay. This is absolutely perfect. This is exactly where I was saying, you know. And the leading questions, the clarifying questions, Kurt was absolutely right that that is really what makes the game. I mean, when we had, one of the guys was the queen's brother-in-law, and so she had married his brother, but he was in love with her, and I'm like, at one point I was just, oh, so you're the older brother, aren't you? She married your younger brother. So that leading question created something there, and he just ran with it. He was like, "Yes, it was," and I far more, but whatever, you know. So it's really cool game.
Excellent.
2 out of 2 Kurtz agree.
2 out of 2 Kurtz agree. Who
Kurt
are you?
Jr.?
What do you do that makes you famous? Come step closer, sir. Sure.
My name's Dan, and I designed a game that I think I made $40 whole on. So
Yeah,
That's more than a lot of people.
It's like 2 lattes.
in the black.
Make it rain.
yeah.
In the black.
So what struck me about For the Queen? This was my first time playing it. This was my first time playing a story game for itself instead of playing a story game as like, oh, we're going to use this as a session 0 for a longer campaign of something more traditional. What struck me is if you are a GM or want to be a GM, you should absolutely buy and play For the Queen because it teaches you a lot of the universal skills that makes you a really, really good GM. It teaches you active listening, leading questions that are super, super mean, and moving the spotlight around, and a lot of applications I'd never even considered about the X card. And so I left that feeling like I'm used to games like this being described as GM-less, and it felt like everyone was GMing everyone else, and I went into that game basically like, oh, I'm Rasputin's asshole kid, and like that's why no one likes me is because my dad is a creep and I'm useless. And then somebody was, I think, Chris was like, hey, so how'd you learn blood magic? And it was like, oh, yeah, I definitely know blood magic, and my creepy dad taught me, and now I'm a creep, and we did tons of murders. And it was like way more exciting and way more fun than anything I'd imagined for myself. And then it got really woven into everything, and it's great. If it doesn't matter if you don't like story games, if you want to get better at the most trad game on the earth, buy and play For the Queen.
Here.
Awesome.
Up.
Any other comments on For the Queen? Oh, yeah.
Tomes prompted. Also, this was the first time I'd ever used the X card. And it was very exciting.
It became like people ringing the bell for good service.
Yeah. Sort of like bong 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 bong. You know, we done did it. We curated content using the X card because it wasn't tonally appropriate and because things were getting spookier and more intrigue and conspiracy, and then something nice would happen. It was like, nah, dog, that's not like that doesn't vibe.
That's not my queen.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Yes. Stay up here because I'm going to have you talk about your game next because you ran a game.
I did.
Okay. Yes, Adam.
Hi. I'm sorry, I have an opinion about everything. You guys know this by now. But
Wait, what?
No, this was just kind of eye-opening to me because the X card, while I love it and I've had it present in a lot of games, and I've never seen it used in any of my games that I've played or run. I've never used it myself in any games that I've played or run. I'm comforted to know it's there, but it's always been kind of this ineffectual thing that's like, okay, I know it's there, but I'll never use it, and my players will never use it, and my GM will never use it. And I kind of like that it sounds like that this is making it so it's okay to use it in all kinds of circumstances. So when you need to use it in that really triggering, dangerous circumstance where you really, as a person, need to emotionally stop this from happening to have your fun, it's less of a pressure. It's not like, oh my God, they hit the nuke button. It's yeah, X card. Yeah, we move on. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Right. And I think that's a beautiful thing, and I had not even thought about that before.
Normalize it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, you want to come up and talk about your game? Sure. Reintroduce yourself.
So I'm still Dan, and on Friday night at Games on Demand, I ran a game I designed called 9 Lives of Valhalla.
The $40 game?
The game that made me $40 whole.
Oh, yeah.
Made him 40.
Yeah.
That was the net.
Big
That's all I came here to say is just brag about straight dollars. You got more mics, right? I can really spike this thing. Oh no? No? All right, cool. Yeah, I will gently place the mic upon the carpeted floor. So 9 Lives of Valhalla is a game about death metal Viking cats who...
You're not using the right voice, Dan.
Nine Lives to Valhalla is a game about death metal Viking cats long after the age of man, when there is nothing to hate more than dogs themselves who still worship the leash. Yeah. Yeah, guys, it's very good. Here's my advice. If anybody is working on designing a game and you have a halfway decent pitch, like just make that game, because a good pitch is the hardest thing. If you've got a good name, that's the hardest thing. The rest of the game will flow from there. Like whatever, just slap Powered by the Apocalypse on it. Who cares? But like if you've got a name, like run, just go. Go. So it's fine. Nobody else cares about the mechanics except you, the designer. Just like make your weird game. Life's too short. So Nine Lives of Valhalla is a game I wrote in a month. I made it using tools I had for free via not being very well supervised in my place of employment.
That's more than $1 a day, people.
Yeah. Exactly. Like
Holy crap.
don't work on things. It's a suckers. Anyways, the game I ran on Friday went really, really well. It's actually I don't know if people are familiar with Ryutama. It's technically a Ryutama hack where you have 4 attributes, which I'm going to forget, but they're like savagery, brutality, cunning, and cat, basically. And
How did you forget cat?
There's a couple of things that worked really well that I was really, really happy with how it went. The tone landed. People found it very evocative. We didn't. I mostly just growled in a metal voice instead of having a tone conversation, and we still had a character who summoned dark magics from a top hat, which was great. And the people really enjoyed. So the core mechanic is every time you roll the dice, either you accomplish what you were hoping to do or you die. And as a GM. But it's okay. You have 9 lives. And you have to lose all of them to get into Valhalla. So you kind of want to. It's like you level up every time you die. So it's like you're running a whole D&D campaign in like one session. So as a GM, it kind of burns you out pretty quick because you got to keep coming. Like they tried to pick a lock and then they rolled bad, and so now you have to explain why they're dead. Like, which a lot of times is like an arrow hits you, and I'm gonna just say words until we can come to a mutual agreement about why that's appropriate. But so when you die, you get a blessing from Valhalla. And when I wrote this game, I spent a lot of time on Wikipedia looking up weird mythology about cats. Turns out people think or thought or still think that cats steal the breath of children and kill them. So obviously, when you die and go to Valhalla, you can come back with having the stolen breath of mankind's babe. And like, who cares what that does in the mechanics? Like, that shit pops. So that went really great. Like, the players got a kick out of like getting to come back and be like, yeah, my mouth's on fire now all the time, and like we're not gonna worry about that. It was what
we're not gonna worry about that.
Yeah.
It's just fire.
You can eat
fire
raw
in the
food
mouth.
now. It'll be cooked by the time it hits you.
Every day is barbecue.
Think of all the time
what
savings.
didn't work, and what I would like to improve, but also that would mean like tinkering with it more, and I don't want to necessarily go back to the well. Is there are things that are left unsaid. There was a lot of questions about like, okay, we die and we come back, but like how though? Like, and even explicitly leaving that ambiguous, but having questions to ask.
Those
or,
are
like,
stupid questions, Dan. I mean,
yeah.
it's perfect.
The one problem it like genuinely could use room for, and Tomes actually gave some really great advice on this, is the only thing I can do as a GM at any given time is escalate. Because if I'm not escalating things, then people are going to realize that it's just throwing dice at each other and then maybe dying. So I've got to just come up with like crazier and crazier thing. Which I was really lucky because one person's hated nemesis was Toxoplasmodius, the dark god of zombie cats, and that was like great. It's like, you gave me a dark god. Like, I'm gonna run with this. And so, like, I could just go towards, like, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But man, after 2 hours, that wears thin. So, like, having some downtime for characters to interact with the GM can, like, step back and not have to come up with more airbrushed on the sides of vans nonsense would really have made it a lot more.
A space
pleasant
wizard
to
appears.
Yeah. No, I mean, straight. If we still had more game to run, it would have gotten very like. And now you're on a rock in space. Yeah, but yeah, it was a lot of fun to run. And
Question
and I'm
in the
glad people
front.
enjoyed it. Yes. It is available on DriveThruRPG and Itch.io. It is easier to find on Itch.io, and if you buy it on Itch.io, I get to see where you came from on the analytics. So go to there, and it's pay what you want.
And what's the address for Itch.io?
It is itch.io. If you want to go directly to my store page, it's Dan Phipps, ITSDANPHIPPS .itch.io. Yeah. I'm going to give this back to you.
Thank you. Anyone? Yeah, go.
Do I stand here in front of Kurt now? No.
I'll just scoot back.
I know. No, just real quick. I mean, I think Dan covered all the really cool stuff. But that little part about getting to level up so many times in a game is so fun. Every time you die, you're like, new power, and you just feel like that campaign in like 2-3 hour session is really, really cool. So anyways, but the other stuff was fun too.
Also, if you tell your designer friends that you made your game in PowerPoint, they'll redo it for you for free.
Some of them. Some of them who have an InDesign. Yeah. All right. Anyone other comments on this game? Any other comments on this game?
Please,
Going
I will
once?
murder you.
Going twice? Okay. Any other Friday night games?
I ran Friday night. I ran the Great American Novel, which is a role-playing game.
Gander.
It's GAN, as we lovingly call it. It is. It's kickstarting on Monday. I did
Begins.
it. I did it all. I'm going to be on Monday with my whiskey on 9 o'clock in the morning.
Hold on. Monday. On your local Kickstarter.
I'm going to be day drinking and refreshing.
Yeah.
And going on Skype and say, guys, seriously, it's up.
I haven't played this game yet, but I'm going to pay money for it.
Awesome.
I've played it
Because
several
I
times, and I
trust
will
this
definitely
man.
play money for it.
Help me.
I have him. So I ran it twice. I actually ran it Friday night and then this evening. And they were equally, I think, topical. The last night was The Exorcist. That's the great thing about Great American Novel, the trappings. Anything that's driven by character and not car chases works. So, The Exorcist. And then tonight we ran The Shining. So, two very different experiences. I don't know why. I always go to these dark places. But it's therapeutic in a way. I think that, okay, so answer to the questions, which are...
What went great?
What went great?
What went
would
great?
You improve?
What would I improve? Okay. So, The Exorcist. I think there was a tone problem. This has come up a lot tonight. This is, I think, a theme at cons. If you go to a con running The Exorcist, maybe, don't expect a lot, because it is a con. I think I was pretty explicit in the descriptions, but there was struggle with tone. And I did have to bring out the GM voice and say, no, we can't have disco.
Wait, no, do the GM voice.
We can't have disco.
Acceptable.
I'm no teacher. I can't.
It's fine.
But I think I think there's a trap in a con game where you go in. We're just gonna have fun. We're gonna go gonzo and blast through, especially a game like The Exorcist, right? I just want But I was really coming
Disco.
into it saying I want a serious experience.
Disco pea soup. Let's go.
And so when Disco came out, it's like, Lalo Schifrin made a score that was so terrifying that people left the theater.
So
And-
let's practice together real quick.
Okay.
We can't have disco.
We can't
No.
have disco.
Okay, keep talking. You'll practice. Yeah.
I'll work on it.
We can't have disco.
That's how I know to make lines dramatic.
There's no disco in The Exorcist.
There is no.
All right,
you,
so
Kurt.
you were making really good points, and I messed it up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kurt. So anyway, but no, it was fine. There were really terrifying moments, and I want to talk about the X card real quick because that was one of my learnings that I had from these 2 sessions. The Shining went extremely dark. The Exorcist went extremely dark, and I think it did because we were protected. There's an X card on the table, so it's not like I'm going to trigger. What are you doing? It's not Let the record show Kadave is upstaging me.
That is completely untrue. I was silent.
It's not like okay. So with the X card, you are okay. I don't want this. It triggers me. I'm gonna hit the X card. But the X card has a reverse effect. I know I have an out. We went places I'd never gone in cons before, and I'm not even going to talk about it because we went dark places. Yeah. But I was okay with it because I had an out. I knew that if it ever did cross the line, I could X. And we all knew that. And we sort of kept pushing and pushing and pushing until we reached really terrifying moments. Right. And I think both games really, really worked because of that.
That's awesome. And I think it's really important when tools really work like that story is shared so that people do, like, because it's easy to be like, oh, I have the X card on the table, and then nobody uses it, and everybody feels like, oh, look, we used it, but nobody used it. So it's nice to have those moments when it really did serve its purpose and improve the game culture at the table, especially at a con game where it's harder because it's high stakes. There's, strangers sometimes you have a very set time frame, so there's not like the time to like talk it out if things go wrong. That's a fantastic example, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's like having a life vest, so you know that things go too far, you do have an out, and I think that allows you to push farther.
Absolutely. Yeah. Rob has a question.
Oh, good.
All right, I am turning my body so the rest of the audience can hear me.
But I can't see you now.
Son of a bitch.
So here's the deal. Just stand in front of Kurt, and you'll be in the right place.
Perfect.
So Chris, unfortunately, I was originally registered and I had to cancel, which I was pretty bummed about. But knowing what you know now about cons and how to approach it at cons, and thank you, Kimmy. If you're gonna take other con like opportunities and stuff like that, you mentioned the word Gonzo, for instance. Would you go more like Fear and Loathing? Would you go more like Cannery Row? Like, what do you see given the con environment to be?
Cannery Row real Gonzo?
The way I read it, it was.
Yeah, I think it's
Fair.
easier to go in a Gonzo direction because people are already uncomfortable with the framework and the system. So if you give them the way to play it out that way, it's great. Like I would love to see like a Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas would be perfect because you can really go. The problem is that I love horror. And so I always trying to bring that to the table. And a lot of the reasons I made GAN was that I had a framework that could produce it in a controlled way. Mm-hmm. And so so I always try to put it on horror. That's my own. And if you ever play a game with me, for some reason, they all go dark.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know why.
I would like to explain.
Of course you would.
I feel like we need an X card in that Call of Cthulhu game for tone. Because it wasn't horrifying.
No.
It was just a comedy romp through the deep ones.
He's talking about the ShadowCon we did
Yeah.
with, but that was Hollywood. We're making a monster picture.
It was so
the tone's
good.
built in.
So I have a question about your system. So the Great American Novel, you've talked about it a couple times. In running it, do you feel as a GM and a designer, it's more successful if you pick a story that people are less familiar with, or when you pick something like The Shining or something that people know, like Dead Cold, at least the movie version of, does that hurt it in some way?
I think it's easier to do trappings, as I would call it. Mm-hmm. Like, we're going to play The Shining. Everybody knows what that means. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows the tropes, and you don't have to explain anything. Written as rules as written, Great American Novel, you're supposed to, friggin' play The Great Gatsby, or Beloved or something.
That's what I'm super excited about.
Right, and it works great in that way. And we're going to do ShadowCon coming up, which is going to be on, we're going to do, I've lost it. I've suddenly lost my memory. Downton Abbey.
Oh.
We're going to do Downton Abbey with Great American Novel on ShadowCon. And that's more what it's designed to do.
Wait.
right, continue.
But it does. It helps to have trappings. In fact, when I started bringing it to cons about a year ago, people were like, "I don't really want to play the Dust Bowl."
That makes sense.
You know, at con. Well, you would, but you're.
I
Rob.
would Grapes of Wrath the shit out of this game.
I know you would.
Oh, for sure.
But you know, when you're looking at a list, and you know, like, I can play Transformers, or I can play some like Great Depression household that's lost all of their money. It was hard sell, so I started putting trappings on it.
That makes sense.
And it worked really great with that.
Branding is what we call it.
Yes. So marketing people do have skills.
Shut your lying mouth.
You're right. I'm wrong.
Yeah. Lying is the skill that you have.
It's called positioning.
Oh, sure.
Awesome.
Sure.
Fantastic.
What? Yeah,
Players.
I think we answered the questions. Players.
Wait, yeah. Okay.
Would you try like the Good Earth?
Yeah.
Kurt's question was, would you try the Good Earth?
Yeah, I would. And I would also try the Avengers. It works in the entire spectrum. Because the Avengers is not about the superpowers or fighting the villains. It's about the character interactions and their motivations and what gets in the way of their motivations. So as long as it fits that formula, it'll work.
So are you gonna like market like the sequel, The Great American Movie, which is exactly the same thing, just with a different picture on the cover?
Well, I'm gonna build the framework like Fate does. Yeah, I'm gonna build a framework like Fate does to create settings that are about a particular experience.
Nice.
So and yeah, we're gonna do The Godfather. We'll do
nice.
particular.
Cool.
Can I ask a favor?
Of course, anything for you, Dave.
Can we play your game, but Jaws?
Yes, that's a great idea.
That would be tight.
Because it's a character story.
Can I be in that game?
Well, I don't know. It'll cost you.
I will pay the iron price.
You're in.
Yeah, you know,
For
it's a
your
2-for-1 thing.
Exorcist game, for your Exorcist game, I actually tried to seed it with some just average con-gory people that haven't really played a lot of narrative games. Did that couple show up?
Yeah, there was there was a group. I actually run games for I think everybody at that table before, and I said when I opened the conversation that there were tone challenges, but it turned around.
Okay.
And I think the important thing about me running games in a con environment is that I have to understand I'm in a con environment. And that's, roll with the punches. It's a crowded room. There's lots of noise, and I'm trying to do something serious here. And so it was a good experience because I was able to navigate it. And it turned around. And I think that at the end, I mean, there was some serious shit that went down in that game. And there were points at the table where just stopped and just like visualizing it and understanding the severity of what was happening. And, the possessed was vomiting insects all over them. And that's just like, okay, wow, this is The Exorcist.
Well, my question to them is, and they're like going, well, we're thinking, what do you recommend? We're looking at this Exorcist game, we're looking at this other game, and we're looking at a Pathfinder game. And I'm going, all depends. How hard do you want to go?
I tried to bring it, Jim. I tried to bring it.
The wife looked at me a little funny, but the guy
Jim looked at them and said, "Are you a goer?"
Oh, I know.
Are you a goer?
Wait, I know the couple. I know who you're talking about. They brought it.
Good, because
they brought it.
That literally is exactly how hard do you want to go?
Yeah,
and
they brought it.
They're like, what do you mean? What do you want to bring? Do you want a real cool role play experience where you come out of it and you're telling the story over and over again, and it's not really about the dice, it's about what you do? They're like, yeah, play that Exorcist game. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, I think they did. I hope they did.
So that's fantastic. Thanks. Just want to
So-
know how they
so-
did.
So I have a question. Having played your game before and after you wrote and started using the GM rules.
Oh yeah, I do. I did implement GM rules.
How is the pacing difference now that you've started implementing your own GM rules?
Well, I found myself watching the players and not interacting at all. And I actually got called out at Crit Hit in Phoenix, which is a wonderful con, by the way. I recommend going if you can. But the players after that said, I was wishing you did more. And I thought, you know what? I don't really have any systems in place to do anything. And once I started implementing systems for the GM, the game got way more intense. And The Shining, I had to, because I'm playing the hotel. And the hotel's going to fuck you. And it's going to destroy your life and use your known weaknesses to do it until it has a new caretaker. So I have to be an active player. But in The Exorcist, it's a little different because I was playing a victim, which was the possessed. And so, but yeah, in answer to your question, yes, there needs to be GM tools in order to help drive fiction. Otherwise, the players will create their own fiction indefinitely. And at some point, you have to stop the game.
Excellent.
We have players, right?
Yeah. Any players?
Who played it?
You played both of them.
Who are you and what do you do that makes you famous?
I'm Cal. I'm not famous.
Okay, excellent. So you come over here. And impressions?
No impressions.
So we just found out what makes Cal famous.
So what'd you think about the game?
I think a Great American Novel. This is the third time I played it. I played it when it was in an early draft, and now yesterday and today. It's the best storytelling game I've ever played. But I was a literature major. I spent like 10 years in college reading all the Great American Novels and all that. So this was like the game that was made for me. So I'm buying like 3 copies on Monday, giving them away to people. I'm gonna make all my friends play it, so they might come after you.
Nice.
Yeah, they might come after you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I think it's a fantastic game. It's like a cross between a storytelling game and a party game. That's what I think about it. Like, it's fun. You get to know the people at the table, kind of by their choices in the narrative. And then also at the same time, as a writer, what I really like about it is it's like writing at a table with a bunch of other people. Now, I've worked in writers' rooms, and it sucks. I hate it. But this game is like if a writer's room was actually fun. It would be like this game. So I recommend it. If you get a chance to play it, play it. Yeah. What would you improve? What would I improve? I personally would love to not play a horror thing again.
What?
The first time we played it, it was like this Southern Gothic thing that we came up with. The players concocted the whole thing. So while I like The Exorcist and The Shining, it might be fun to try Jaws. I think Jaws, which is horror, I guess, but very different. You know, Jaws would be great. Something that's kind
Taxidermy man, he gonna have
what's
a heart
funny is-
attack when he see what I bring him.
Christopher keeps mentioning car chases. I think he's got like a hang up about car chases.
No, I would like to do Ronin.
Because there are no great American novels with car chases, though. So
Right, but
I don't know why you worry about that.
No, I want them, but I can't write them in because it's called the Great American Novel.
Yeah. There's no novel. Like, I can't even think of a. Maybe.
The Great Gatsby, but it's quick.
That's not a car chase. That's not really a car
vehicular
chase.
homicide.
Yeah, that's more like Car
It's
Wars.
It's
mowing
hold
down
on,
a pedestrian.
Hold
or
on, the
death race.
two-player game version. The two-player game version of Great American Novel has Airwolf, Ernest Borgnine, and the other guy just, hey, what are you doing up there?
So,
I just fixed this helicopter. I'm Ernest Borgnine.
Dan also played. I think Dan should come up and say something.
yeah, Dan.
Dan ruled.
Dan's got words.
Thank you. Thanks for coming up.
Airwolf.
And Dan again.
Yeah, I'll be quicker this time. It was a lot of fun. I think one of the things that worked about it specifically as a horror game was getting to take like a half step back from but
I'm your audience, Dan. I'm your audience.
I want to praise his work. It's really nice
I paid
in
him.
a horror game getting to take a half step back so that when the hotel starts hiding extremely pertinent details about the current whereabouts and aliveness of the person you married, like for months, that you can just sort of like turn into the skid because it's like, oh, I'm not making it out, but I know that in chapter 2 of 5. So like, great, I can just make bad choices. Also, I'm pretty sure On the Road with Jack Kerouac has a car chase in it, so you can you can do it, man. Like steal cars, and also I'm pretty sure the Fast and Furious series is a body of great American work.
It's about character interaction. It's about character interaction.
It's about family.
Excellent.
Then we're still on Friday night games.
please do that.
We're still on Friday night. This is Friday night games we're doing still.
Any other Friday night games?
Kurt.
Kurt it up. Just stand directly in front of other Kurt. We can't have
Come
two
over here.
Kurts.
Cheat this way. All right. And what did you run? You're not holding the mic.
Okay. All right. Fine.
I know you.
Okay, so Friday night
That's my
and
purse.
this morning, I ran a game called Heist in Wild Talents, One Roll Engine. This is the same game that I ran at the for the stream a couple of weeks ago on One Shot Saturday, and so I ran the same game 3 times in the span of a month. It was not the same game at all between the 3 of them. There was almost the same character breakdown between. I had 6 characters, 4 players each time, so there was possibility of different characters being brought in, or different archetypes being brought in. But all 3 of them took completely different approaches, which is what was great about running the heist game, because it's all player driven. I come up with a setting and then I say, here, go. And for the most part, like on the stream and last night, it was like 3 hours of planning and 1 hour of execution. This morning, it was like 75 minutes of planning and 45 minutes of execution, and I was done by 11:30. Wow. It's like, okay, you stole the thing. I guess we're done.
Okay, so
a bunch of my players from both last night and this morning are here. Okay.
What do you think went well? What do you think you would change to make it better?
What I think went well is the fact that I customized the game as they were planning on the fly to suit the skill sets that were present. Okay. So in no case did they pick a hacker. So there weren't electronic locks to try to get past, you know.
Let the record show that
Right?
Rob said
I mean-
take notes.
So yeah, I mean that was probably the single best thing that happened, other than the players were freaking awesome. It was just in terms of my own prep of just rolling with what skill sets were actually present at the table, and so it was very much if I were a player and I was trying to figure out how to do this, what would I want the answer to be? Right. And that's what the answer was. Okay. So. Well, I would wait for them to actually ask the question, but essentially, you know, if I were the one asking this question, what would I want the answer to be? And, you know, sometimes the dice adjudicate that, but sometimes they don't have to. Mm-hmm. As far as what I would do to improve, I underpowered my antagonists. Oh, okay. Yeah, they made mincemeat out of my superpowered superheroes way too quickly, and I would have. I mean, they were like. The criminals were like 150, 200 point characters for Wild Talents, and the superheroes were 450 point characters, and they made mincemeat out of them. So, but 4-on-1. So, that's really what it was. Okay. I would have upped the antagonist's abilities more.
So Wild Talents really struggles with solo monsters, and so I would say as like a balancing mechanic, I would part that out into multiple creatures, because just the amount of hitboxes you have, the way Wild Talents works, if they roll too many 10s, like that dude's dead. You got nothing that you can do.
Right. This is why you have armor, but what I should have done is I did have 2 superpowered heroes that were going to come in and thwart the problem, to thwart the criminals, and in all 3 cases, I had one of them show up. I probably should have had both of them show up. Right. They don't work together necessarily, but they could both show up. So, yeah, that would have solved that problem.
Okay. Players? Any players want to come up and talk about it? Going once?
Kurt Jr.
Yeah.
Kurt
little
Potts
Kurt.
Jr.
Kurt the third.
I'm sorry, you're right.
Kurt. Who are you and what do you do that makes you famous?
I'm Kurt, and that's my dad.
Woo! Step a little closer this way. All right.
I think you're more attractive.
Oh, snap.
Yeah.
Impressions? What'd you like about it? What do you think you could improve?
I thought it was a really good game, and it was my first time playing Wild Talents, and I thought it was really, really fun and how it worked. But I do agree that there should be more people to fight because we killed it very easily. We killed the boss very easily. With the one attack of a shock ability, the whole boss was dead instantly.
Oh, not quite, but yeah.
Yeah, within a couple turns, it was already dead. So I feel like if we had put in more monsters in that last battle, it would have been a lot better. But that's all I have to say about it.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Cool. Thank you. Any other players? Any other players? Comments? Going once? Going twice?
I have one more question. So, Kurt, so you said that you sorry, Kurt Hanna.
So many Kurts.
You said that you had some timing things go on where like one time it was 3 hours to plan for the heist and the next time it was 1 hour to plan for the heist. Was that something that you were sort of like, I'm okay, because I'm usually cool with a short game. Like if it resolves like satisfying, if there's a satisfying end and it's in 2 hours, then cool, that's the game we got.
Yeah, it's more bourbon time.
Yeah.
Well,
but
I was. Dick.
I guess I'm just curious. Did you not have dials, or were you just okay with whatever the time was?
I was fine with whatever they came up with in terms of a plan, if it even seemed remotely feasible. And all three of the plans that the games came up with were feasible. They. You think that's going to dissuade him? You've known him longer than that. It's just that I actually ran the same premise 8 years ago at the con in Savage Worlds, and because I didn't know about Wild Talents at the time. I think that con was the same one I played Wild Talents for the first time at, so it was like, oh, that's when I learned. But it's just the heist games, and which tend to follow from heist movies. It's like 75-90% planning, and then that last little bit of execution that actually happens. And it's just that this morning's game, they were way more simple. Their plan was much simpler. They didn't go to on the stream they had like 5 contingency plans. The one last night they had they were going a fairly complex route. This morning, bolt cutters. I mean, it came down to hopping a chain link fence and taking a day job for a week before the heist actually happened, and using a pair of bolt cutters. I mean, it was dirt simple. Even though this morning they got caught by the game took place in the Port of San Pedro, and in this morning's game, one of the characters rolled badly and got caught by the Coast Guard. Still managed to get out of it.
Okay.
So,
all right, cool. Saturday games that we haven't previously talked about. Any Saturday games?
Go ahead.
So I ran the first game of Lighthearted Saturday morning down in Games on Demand, where I was apparently leading Games on Demand because Tomes was on the stream. I don't want Tomes' job. Thank you. Thank you, Tomes, for doing this. It's very stressful, and you left Fall of Magic on the table, and I know it's really expensive, and I was stressed out the whole time because every once in a while I would hear jingling, and I thought it was so stressful. Anyway, so I ran a game during that. And
Hold on. Before you got to your game, he stood up in front of the group and he tried to do the Tomes spiel.
Nobody but Tomes can do the Tomes spiel.
But then he said,
I gave it my best.
No. I loved your spiel. But he said, "Hi, I'm Kurt. I'm not Tomes. I can't be that aggressively good." And I almost peed myself. Which would have been really bad because I tried to run a game after that. It would have been real smelly and awkward.
You should hydrate more.
That's the
problem. So I ran Lighthearted in the morning. This would be the third time I had ever run the system. I had disparate players. So 3 of my players, I have 4 players, 3 of them were very much into, let's talk about our feelings, and I'm kind of into you, and you're kind of into me, but I'm also into your twin brother, and so maybe we'll chat. And then also, I had a guy who I feel like maybe like a trad player, or he kind of came at the game with, how can I win? Right. Which rules light story type games, that's not really a concern. The mechanics don't prevent you from winning, because why are you doing that? Like the designer does not want you to be doing that. They don't care if you're doing the winning is not like an interesting part of the game. So it's just not accounted for. And so I knew things were going to be a little odd when the first thing they asked was, what's the best stat for solving the mystery? And I was like, oh, I don't have a mystery. This is going to be a problem. They seemed to have a really good time, and they gave a glowing review at the end. But the problem was, anytime there was like enough air in a scene for that sort of banter to start up between the I want to date your twin brother kind of stuff, he would see that as, I feel like this is fluff. I should do something to move the story forward. It's my job to help. I'm gonna drive the story, and so he would jump in. So we had a lot of like, they would get interrupted, and he's like, oh, I'm doing this, or I'm doing that, or I'm going to go over here and do this. And, I mean, it was interesting, and we got a good game out of it. But it was definitely, like, these 3 players did not get the game they were hoping to get, and this guy kind of did. Mm-hmm. So that's something, we had a tone discussion at the top, but we didn't use the X card for tone curation, except for one time when they described something extremely violent when they killed a vampire with like a huge like conflagration and melted them, and then they said at the end it goes poof, and I was like, I'm gonna just X the poof.
Okay,
but yeah, I don't think we have
are there any players here from that?
No.
Lighthearted players from this morning.
No, I don't think we have any.
Okay. Any more Saturday morning games? Yes, Kadave.
I was there for the Kurt-led Games on Demand, and I ran. So I set myself up.
How did you set yourself up?
Oh, well, thank you, Chris.
There's a microphone.
Yeah. I set myself up a little bit because I decided that I was going to run Tales from the Loop, the 80s that never was, at 9 o'clock at Games on Demand. And the outcome of that game was going to be the beginning of the plot for my 2 p.m. game.
And how did that work out for you?
It went way better than I thought it was going to. At 9 o'clock, I was sweating bullets. I was really afraid because I didn't want to tell the people at the table that, hey, you're influencing the fun of people later, because then they would poop on it. So I was like, you know what? Yeah, we'll keep that under the table for now. But I ended up with 7 players, which is a little bit more than the comfortable number for one of the Tales games. But I had a great time, and I ended up with players that made amazing characters, and we helped robots find a place to be safe.
Long live opportunity.
The thing that I wish could happen better is when you have a lot of players in a game, I feel like there's people that don't get as much spotlight time as they deserve. Right. And I don't know a solution for that. But I tried to spread it around as much as I could. I felt like Gene got ripped off. He didn't get to roll a lot of dice. But he rocked because he was the rocker. So it was good. And we had a guitar, drum, and oboe band. And they were good.
A metal version of The Rite of Spring by Stravinsky.
Yeah.
Yeah, go.
Well, first off, can anybody that played in the 9 a.m. game, Games on Demand, that wants to say anything, come on down. Big money.
Who are you and what do you do that makes you famous?
My name's Christos. I work on the forums and all the new and old and all the forums.
All of them.
All of them. And
all of the many iterations of the forum.
Right. I'm actually anti-famous though, so you're less famous standing next to me. I'm sorry.
Awesome. Excellent.
I played in Dave's game, and this is my first con, and it's only like my third time playing in a game ever. So I DM a lot, but my first time playing. So it was super cool and different and awesome, and Dave's fantastic. And I think our group was really odd because it seemed like everybody wanted something different out of it. So like your troublemaker was awesome. Like he was so fun and interesting. And then the weirdo character was super weird. And so it created like this really odd dynamic, but it was super fun. I had a really good time. Cool. Yeah, it was cool.
What would you do better? What would you do differently?
Have someone besides Dave run it.
Right. No. Actually, less people. That's what we need. Like that was really the problem. Big tables are so hard to work with, but Dave did a good job and like kept us all fairly reasonably on track.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Dave has a big, indiscriminate, generous heart.
He does. One of the things that was interesting was the players didn't. A lot of us didn't like seem to know what to do with the robot when we found him. We're like, "Hey, you're a robot and you have feelings." And we're kids, so we don't know what to do with that. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic, but it was super fun and different. Okay, yeah, it was cool.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Any other comments? Comments? Going once? Going twice? Sold American. All right.
So 2 o'clock.
Right.
I ran maybe the first game of Things from the Flood at a convention.
Really? Oh, possibly, yeah.
It's not released yet. I just have I backed it on Kickstarter, so they sent me the email version of the PDF. So maybe. I'm going with that accolade until anybody tells me different. So.
It's different. At least at a Southern California gaming con
Yeah.
in February.
There has never been a game of this at Strategicon events before.
I can vouch for that.
So Tales from the Loop is a great game about kids having an adventure in the 80s with super science, right? It's literally the tagline for the game is the 80s that never was. So it's everybody at home, they've got Apple IIes and Commodore 64s and cable TV that you have to get up and change the channel by hand. But
we actually had remotes back then.
Well,
It's
look
not
at
great.
Mr. Fancy Pants over there that lived in a remote control household.
I was the younger brother that had to get up and go and change the channel.
But at the same time, because of some big super science stuff that happened after World War II, the world developed actual self-balancing robots and discovered a way to make super tanker cargo carriers float with the magnetosphere of the Earth in the northern hemisphere and stuff like that. And it's a game where the tone of the game is all about the promise of the future, right? And kids in the game can't die, and they go on these adventures and solve problems themselves. Things from the Flood is real dark.
And where does that
it's
take
set
place in the
In the
timeline?
1990s. And
grunge
after,
era.
After everything from the 80s collapsed and turned to shit.
Right.
Everything has gone bad, and the super science is over, and robots are going wrong. The floating magnetrine ships don't work as well anymore. Just a bunch of bad things have happened, and teenagers feel it.
Right.
And in this game, you're playing late teens, 15 to 19.
So Doc Martens.
And for 2 o'clock, I ran a game that was, in the first game, they managed to successfully keep the robots from being captured, and they helped them find a way out. They ended up settling outside of Boulder City, Nevada, and building like an underground community for robots. And over 10 years, they lived there secretly and in peace. But in the 90s, things go wrong. The loop facilities in Sweden and Boulder City, Nevada have become flooded with some kind of strangely somewhat toxic water that nobody knows where it's coming from. It ends up detonating Hoover Dam and flooding the whole valley where Boulder City is. And half the city is underwater at this point and being salvaged. And the teens in the 90s, they end up finding one of the robots from that enclave, which, for those viewers at home, was Dav from our Insert Coin game. He, because of contact with this weird water that's coming out of the loop facilities, he had developed in the book what they call machine cancer. So the robots, the self-balancing robots, used somewhat biological nerve filaments to make them have reaction time similar to humans for, of course, military and war applications. But that has gone wrong with this. And so they start developing like horrible tumors that make them either go crazy and violent or self-destruct or just become immobile and can't exist anymore. So the teens, they managed to kind of find a way to help out Dav, and then he could go back and help the other robots. I like the new game because it has a kind of cool mechanic that we didn't actually get into a lot, called the friction. And this is actually the first game I've ever run of it. So when you make your group and all the teens make their relationships with each other, the group decides what's sort of the thematic friction in our group. Like what causes problems in our group. And today they kind of went with money because everybody was in a household that was struggling a little bit. A lot of scientists lost their jobs when the loop facility closed. Hoover Dam closed, so a lot of industry workers were out of a job. So they went with money, and it didn't really have the pop that I wanted. So I felt like that's something I need to work on for future games. But I had a great time. And, of course, being blessed with the people that come to this convention, players show up at the table, and I have a fucking great time. Like, people make choices that just tickle me, and I can't help but laugh like a fun fruit tree. So, yeah, there's an 80s and 90s reference for you. So, yeah, anybody that played in the 2 o'clock 90s Things from the Flood game that wants to say anything? Well, get up
Come on.
here. Stop your jabber-jawing. Oh, fishing for Adams.
First of all, you know Hufflepuffs can't catch.
Hush, Rob. Don't voice your thoughts. They're not suitable for television.
You be careful. That man has a neck tattoo.
That's right. I'm hardcore. Hardcore, Rob.
There's 2 butterflies in that tattoo.
Do you know how many you have to kill to get a butterfly?
Sorry. Hey. Oh, Rob. Yeah. So,
Rob only gets El Cholo.
La Chola.
And we're back.
Oh. That's hot, and I'd watch it.
Anyway, so hi, I'm Adam, and I'm here with Joey.
Hi.
And like pretty much the whole gang is here. We're only missing one player. There's only one player from that game that isn't here right now. Anyway, this was okay. So I'm very much like this was practically my age group. Like the kids we were playing, like the oldest ones were only about like 3 or 4 years younger than I actually am, and was at that time. So at that time, Rob.
It took you a while to get to that.
At that time,
Rob.
Yeah. So anyway, but no, it was, and I think while you didn't purposefully hit it hard with the whole money as the friction thing, it very much happened and it was very much motivating for all our characters, and at least me very much on the back burner. But I felt it coming from all of the different characters that this money friction was extremely important to all of us, and to me, as somebody who was kind of like living through that time. Sorry, I've had a little bit to drink, so I'm slurring a little bit.
It's called talking in cursive.
Talking in cursive.
Fuck shit, fuck shit.
Yeah. Anyway, I had this was very much about the 90s, and the 80s was this very optimistic, like, yeah, we're all gonna live forever, do coke, invest in stocks, everything's great, wear shoulder pads, and
We
then the
flew too
90s
high
came
is the
along,
problem.
and we're like, Kurt Cobain, that's depressing as fuck, and then we're all like sad and crying and wearing our flannel, and this very much echoed that kind of mood, and it was kind of built into it, like, wow, everything is sad. Like, all of the prompts for these characters was like, oh yeah, my parents have lost their jobs, and we're getting divorced, and there was a lot of despair in this game that I think was very similar to what was going on for a lot of us in the 90s, trying to deal with that come down from this golden age of the 80s idealism and really illusion of the 80s. And so anyway, I thought it hit really hard, and that was a very interesting part of it to me. But yeah.
I'm gonna slightly disagree and say that I think part of the problem. I don't think the issue was the way you handled the friction. I think the way the friction is set up, you need more than a one shot to really set it up. You needed to take time to develop those relationships. I think if we played 2 more sessions, it really would have made itself prominent. And I felt that way a little bit about most of the connections. We had really good connections on paper, but didn't really have a lot of time to explore them. And that's the only thing I was kind of like, I wish we could have done that more, but that's just a me thing. I do have an important question as a fan of Tales from the Loop and as a player in this game. Did Dav save Anne?
Anne died.
No! He didn't reactivate her. He couldn't.
Nope, she was lost.
Well, now I'm depressed.
Because it's the 90s.
So this was kind of glossed over in the game, and I was like, I think that's what he did, but I wasn't sure because you kind of just moved on, and I was super sad about it.
Yeah, that's much.
One for the homie.
But yeah.
Hold on.
You gotta milk it.
Hold on.
Hey, what character did Kurt Potts play? Bay Potts.
Bring it in. Bring it in. Bring it in. Bring it in real close.
Yeah.
I love you, man. I love you too. Welcome. Thanks.
Yeah, it was weird for me to play the game because the 90s was 14 years before my time. So
the 90s is actually history for you.
Yeah.
You study that in school, right?
Let's point out the characters' ages were 14 to 18. And like all of us were like well over 18. And then there's the 14-year-old playing the 18-year-old and the rest of us playing
he was
younger.
the oldest one in the group, yeah. But also I would like to point out that he doesn't ever know what it's like to be able to wait for your loved ones at the gate at the airport. What the fuck? And here's the thing. Did you get the depressing tone of the 1990s?
not at all.
Oh.
I just tried to make jokes that seemed appropriate with what everybody else was talking about.
It worked.
I've never been prouder.
So what character? What? You know what? Hold on. I fucked this up. I'm fine. I fucked this up. Who are you, and what makes you famous?
I did that. I'm Kurt, and that's my dad.
I wasn't in the room at the time, so I want to know.
I've been on Pixel Scandal.
Oh. He's that guy in the background.
What's that?
Well, that's a podcast that you can find at pixelscandal.com.
But yeah, the game was super fun, and I had a ton of fun playing it.
Awesome.
Thank you for running it.
And what character did you end up playing?
I was the Motorhead.
Sweet. And what was your name?
Not at all. I don't understand it. Mario. Little Puppet.
Little Puppet! So the last thing that I want to talk about is, as I was being lazy and not really wanting to prep games, I was on Discord with several of my real life friends that unfortunately many of you know. I enlisted them to make these characters on Discord with me over the course of 2 nights, and they created these characters for this game and built the most intricate background world around each of them that could exist. Like, I had so much story just from that character creation that I didn't have to prep anything, which was amazing, and I thank them for it. But what fascinated me was all of the stuff that they came up with background character-wise was diluted down to the spots on the character sheet for everybody that played in the game, and the direction that the people in the game went that was so wildly different, but it's like I had secret knowledge of the alternate world, like some other dimension where these characters had a different story, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Like the Raver with the Honda Civic, it happened. So it was based on a friend's real life friend that had a Honda Civic with multicolored body panels. The car didn't work great and broke down a lot, and so they developed a relationship with the Motorhead because he was the guy that would come out with the tow truck and help them after raves at 2 a.m. And like, there were all these weird story beats that I was like, those could happen, and they didn't, and I got new ones, and I'm like, I feel like I'm the one guy that's been in both universes. And so I get confused but excited about it at the same time. I'm like, what's going to happen now? I want to know. What's the fate of Little Puppet?
All right. Excellent. I think we got one more Saturday game. Oh, we got 2. Okay. Tap first.
Oh, shit. Were there character sheets?
Okay. What did you run?
Hi.
I'm going to hold the mic. I know you.
God damn it.
That's my purse. I do know you.
So my name's Tappy. I'm known both for my impulsivity and my pedantry. And
that's true. What did you run?
I ran Tenra Bancho Zero.
No, you ran a AP of that a couple weeks ago.
I did. I ran an AP of that, and I learned a lot in that AP, and I put that together in this game. And for those of you that haven't heard me talk about it or watched the AP, it is banana-nanas. It is one of the most ridiculous games I have ever run. And I motherfucking love ridiculous games. It's a Japanese game from the late 90s. And like many games from the late 90s, there's kind of a lot to it. But the core game mechanics of it is be awesome. And that's really it. Like how you get experience is based on how the interaction between kabuki theater and the audience works, and how when something does something badass that they like the crowd erupts immediately. There's no like waiting for things to be done. Like, oh yes, you did very nice. Or if you really liked it, then you stand up and say, oh yes, very nice. No, it's like, fuck yeah. And so that's the mechanic for experience. So what's cool about it is it starts to sort of like roll up on each other, where somebody starts doing it and then other people start doing it. And whenever they like something, they're rewarding the other players with that, and then the players reward each other, and it becomes just this cyclone of being fucking rad.
Like a feedback loop.
Yeah, it's a feedback loop. And so I think everybody had so much fun. I was laughing my ass off. What's that?
It's a circle. Sure.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, what do you think went particularly well, and what do you think you would
like
change?
You'd want to watch it.
Okay, so what I think went particularly well is I know me and that I can't stay on one storyline. So I made at least 3 different possible outcomes from them, like sort of doing their bullshit and looking around and trying to play the game. Unfortunately, I also, because I had alternates and I really want to introduce people to this game, took extra people. So I had 7 people in this bananas game.
That's so many nananas.
It was a lot. And the trouble is because I had different possible story threads for each one, and all of them were concurrently true, different people went to different story threads on different factions when they were all true. And
How did that turn out, Happy?
It turned out fucking rad. Because you just kind of collapse it all on each other, right? Okay. It's like when you actually look in the box of Schrodinger's cat and cat's motherfucking dead. Right. It depends on when you look at it. So
what's in the box?
So when it comes down to it, the biggest problem we had was we just had too many people. Because the core mechanic of the game is be motherfucking awesome. I mean, this is a game where if you get injured, you add dice. Right? You're like, and you can't die unless you choose to. Right. So, I mean, it encourages you to just go to 11 and fuck 11. It's 11 million. Right. But when you have 7 people, it starts to hurt because everybody deserves that much screen time. And I loved every single character we had, and they all, went different ways that I didn't expect. And the group as a whole kind of came together in really interesting ways. I'm glad I got to show the people who are alternates the game because they really enjoyed it. And I still had one person sit out. I was like, I can't take 8. I can't.
You're getting older.
8 will do.
That is one too many. Yeah.
So Tappy, so I have a question, and again, I know nothing about the game other than what you described right now. And it seems like, based on what Dave said earlier and stuff like that, we at Happy Jacks have very open hearts and want to take as many people as possible. Is there a way to you just choose a dick. Is there a way to integrate other people into the game without having them be players?
They would still need screen time.
Okay.
And that's the trouble, is anytime somebody's taking away from that screen time, it makes it that much more difficult to reach your character's potential.
Got it.
And there are only so many, they're called Aiki chits, like Aikido, that you just throw at people for being awesome. There are really only so many you can throw in an hour. So if you have 7 people being as awesome as they can possibly be, it's still not, you're still splitting up that screen time too much.
Happy, I think we as GMs put up a really high bar for ourselves because we seek perfection in our games. We have to remember this is a con game. And our responsibility as game masters are to introduce ideas and to involve people. And even if that makes your experience as a GM a little weaker than you would expect, I still think it's important to, if you can, max out your game.
Oh, no, it didn't make my experience weaker.
Well, then it's great.
I laughed my ass off.
I might actually disagree with you.
Oh.
And I'll tell you why. Because when I've run games with fewer players, I'm able to give more screen time, spend more time with each character, help more with development than I am with 6 or 7 players.
It's a much better game with fewer players.
No
doubt.
I would think that I'm impacting fewer people more meaningfully than I would otherwise.
More people, less meaningfully.
Yes.
Is better.
I have to agree with Stu. Actually, I ran at Games on.
What is that? I'm the one wearing the headphones.
And everybody listening.
What are there, 12?
In the future.
I was just trying to start a fight.
9?
9.
So
say the thing.
So the reason I agree with Stu is I did this exact same thing today. There was no way for me to pull in more people. I mean, granted, I only had physical materials for 4. I had duplicates, which means people would have been playing identical pre-gens, and I could have brought them in, but it would have been a a much worse experience with people literally playing duplicates of characters. Go ahead.
Well, and like if I hadn't had the alternates, which again I really liked, the core 4 would have been like this weird teacher senpai dynamic with samurai, and samurai in this one are basically they Hulk out into awful demon things. So this really nice girl like trying to be taught by this awful horrific demon thing that had no inner monologue. And then like an Oni, which in this game is kind of like the Ainu of Japan, who is all about nature, against a person who basically had a VR set for a magical robot that went out and did stuff while she was in VR. That would have been a cool group. The other people were also awesome, and I'm glad that I got to have them in there, but that core group, that core 4, I would really like to have another chance to tell or to see them do bullshit together more. Is really what it is.
Okay. And from the player's perspective, if I come to this game knowing this is going to be a 4-player game, I'm going to get 25% of screen time, and I sit down and the GM takes 3 extra players, I mean, a little part of me is like kind of I feel like I've been robbed, right?
Yeah,
and
that's
not
a fair
and
point.
I don't want to turn people away. Everyone feels that way. So I'm not gonna leave, right?
Well,
I'm not gonna say, hey, you guys got to get out of here. But
it really is a choice you have to make. Like, if you have a game that nobody else is running, it's hard to say, I don't want you to have this experience.
Yeah, right.
Even if the other one is better. If it's a game that more people are playing, then it's more of like, I want this to be the best experience that I can make. Either way, I'm laughing my ass off. Like, I almost fell over at least 16 times. But it's about what I'm crafting for my group.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I could have done better. It is just
players.
Say fuck off.
I wasn't a player. I was talking about the 7-player problem,
Okay,
which
go.
we seems to be having a problem with.
Yeah.
It's one of these things that if you're running a long running campaign, and you have more players, there's more time to give everybody the necessary screen time. I mean, I always generate more character sheets than I have player slots for, so that nobody has to pick the last one.
So there's a choice.
So there's a choice. There's an honest choice even
Everyone's
for the
got a
last
choice.
person.
I'm trying to get her attention.
Okay. But it.
they're blinking the red light.
We're almost at 2 hours. Go ahead.
Okay, but I feel like each of us do have as GMs when we're running these single shots at one. When we're running these one shots at cons or one shots anywhere, we do need to be a little bit more conscientious of what kind of an experience are we giving for the players who only have that limited amount of time in this game. And it is hard to say no, but
not for me.
For some
Yeah.
people,
Yeah. I think there's a 7-player
effectively said no
problem
today.
because there are 3 alternates on the sheet.
Okay.
But those are alternates. That's if other people don't show up.
Exactly.
So, I was actually one of the players in this Banana Pants game. So let me tell you about how it was having the alternates in there from the player perspective. It actually, while yes, there was less screen time, and yeah, would have loved some more because this game was so unique and really, really fun to play. Everybody was having such a good time and laughing. Like, I think this particular system, and because of where it was going, it actually worked really well especially because the game system is built with players rewarding other players with the chits. Like, it becomes entertainment theater between everybody else. So actually having more players, I think it would be more a matter of having more time to explore with that many people. But it actually worked really well.
Kind of fed the energy a little.
Yeah, because there were so many people and so much dynamic happening between everybody.
Okay.
It was really fun.
Cool. Awesome.
So,
any other player feedback?
I played in the playtest and on the stream. Some of you might have seen it. I had a lot of fun. for a game from the 90s, I was impressed with how flexible it was. A lot of times, games in that era are very cemented into a rule set. Da 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 da. But well, yeah, but everybody had some cool shit happen in our play game. Like everybody had a moment where that was like, what just happened? There was a tree with hanged people trying to beat us to death, and somebody like jumped off of somebody else's back and did what? Fuck yeah, that's amazing. But I think the lesson that I'm taking from this is I should tell people to fuck off to make big games better.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
no,
I should learn that.
The game is
Fuck off, Rob. I
Yeah.
like games.
no. The game really is fun. I like the flexibility with the characters. I think that's super important. Yeah, by the way, I played the samurai that could become gigantic monster person because, of course, I did. But I decided that it was not wolf-like in my description that I gave at the table actively and not in the theater of my mind. Yeah. But it was really fun because, I mean, anything's on the table. You have your introductory period where you get to have a moment all to yourself with your character, and I decided mine was like the cutscene from a video game with the narration, except my character literally was narrating. My character had no internal monologue, so today I literally described everything that I was doing and everything that was happening. Like it was like Drax, but just like cranked up to 11.
Right. Awesome.
So Tappy, going back years and years and years ago for the early podcast time, I remember Exalted was always your, yeah, thanks, Kimmy, I see it. Exalted was always your, like, this is bananas, this is over the top, this is amazing, this is everything that I've always wanted in a system. Does this one, is it more over to the top? How does it compare?
It works better.
Fantastic.
It is not as narratively over the top. Like you're not dodging raindrops as you walk through them, right? Because you're that good at dodging. But it works much, much, much better because combat takes no time as opposed to all the time. We only barely got to the combat at the end of our time because we had so much fun just being like crazy cartoon characters with each other. But yeah, for Exalted, I think the over-the-topness is the goal, and I think with TBZ, the over-the-topness brings you to the goal, which is fun. And so that's what I think the big difference is.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And they are contemporary. They were written at about the same time. Yeah. Exalted was written in 2000, and the first edition of TBZ was written in 1999.
Any more games? Come on up.
Bring it.
Who are you and what do you do that makes you famous?
I'm Joe, and hello. And I am the owner of the Wormkeep Entertainment Company, which is a publisher of fine RPG adventure modules. Okay. And in the afternoon, I ran a 5th edition D&D game, which is actually going to be eventually be a Kickstarter to publish it as an actual adventure for everybody else to play. Okay.
Sweet.
It's called Curse of the Desert Mansion. Nice generic D&D game. So,
where can people find this when the time comes?
they could go to wormkeep.com. That's WYRM keep.com/RPG.
Okay.
And that's usually that's where all the RPG stuff of my company is.
All right. Awesome. And any how'd the game go as far as any positives or anything you would change?
Well, I had to make some changes to run it here because I usually they're designed to be run in one session, but I consider a session to be 8 hours, and obviously I have to run it in 4.5 hours. I decided to make it slightly longer. I was going to try to do 4. That would have actually failed. 4.5 was just long enough to make it run. Okay. But I didn't know I had to slash stuff out. I'd change one combat into a puzzle, remove some rooms. But I still wanted to make sure they could do some exploration because people who have played in previous games and run here do like the fact that I have some exploration involved and not just combat. And then, of course, the final problem is having to kind of force them to get into the adventure instead of having role playing, because there's not time to actually do role playing. That would take too much time out. So that's the main issue.
Excellent. All right. Do you have any players here?
No, I don't think so. I'm looking around. So.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for coming. Woo! All right. What are we at? 2.5? 2:15. All right. I think we're about done.
I'm never done.
We're done.
They just tell me I have to stop.
Come on up.
Bring it. It's already been brought in.
We popped the hour-and-a-half cherry a while ago.
Hi, this is Mary. I didn't run any games this con because I'm still trying to write the one shot I'm going to run for my husband's anniversary gift from 4 months ago.
Aww.
But you know, once that happens, maybe I'll
That's
run it here later. But there were 2 games I ran in that I played in that I want to give a shout out to. The first one was the system was Well of Fears, and you play a 6 to 12-year-old in a world where you can see monsters. And once you turn 13, you either become a monster or just stop seeing them and become an asshole teenager. So yeah, yes. And it had a really neat die mechanic where you built as big a dice pool as possible with your D6s, and then you took the top 3, added those together, and if any of them were 6s, then you started rolling exploding dice in that top 3. So you built a really cool dice pool, and there were a couple times where we were like, so you seem to think the target is 10, Mr. GM, sir, but I have a 32. So, I mean, we just rolled amaze balls while the poor GM was sitting there rolling 3d6s and getting a total of 6. I mean, like, if he had been playing Hero or GURPS, it would have been great for him, but he wasn't. But the system was really cool because I groove on any game where you can play a kid and make really poor kid choices and have them work out. And I liked the mechanics in it. So Well of Fears, really cool. There's a pretty high chance I'm going to try to get my hands on it. The other game I played in that I want to give a shout out to was called Jinkies. It was an apocalypse hack. It was pretty much if Scooby-Doo gang was in a band. I thought it rode the Scooby-Doo aesthetic a little too hard compared to the band Gem aesthetic, which was supposed to be the other influence. I would prefer a better balance between the two. But the game was amazingly fun. The archetypes were really well thought out and had really cool powers that were appropriate to the type of game. And part of the reason I want to give this one a shout out is because he just started the Kickstarter. And it's going to be up for a little bit. And I thought it was a really good game, so I think it's worth checking out, especially if you enjoy kind of that ridiculous, like, 70s hijinks vibe. Because we did catch the bad guy with a ridiculous trap and do the big reveal, and that was super amazing.
And he would have gotten away with it. It was one of you for meddling kids.
Oh, yeah, we got it. We got it. It was beautiful. And then we went and kicked the ass of our rival band in performance right afterwards. So, I mean, we balanced it all. So it was called Jinkies, and it is on Kickstarter now. And if you like that aesthetic, definitely check it out. It really hits those notes well.
Thank you very much, Mary. Woo! All right, that's it. Thank you for joining us for season 23, episode 18 of the Happy Text RPG podcast. My name is Stu.
Well, that's the lesson I learned, is to fuck off. But I'm Kadave. I'm gonna take a little longer to say goodbye because it makes Kimmy angry, and I love that. So,
ladies and gentlemen, Kimmy has left the building.
So, how are you?
All right, Dave's mic's off. Go ahead.
I love you. I'm Mac. I crashed the stage.